Hello and welcome back to the making of the farmhouse for the quest for the eye. In today's video I'm going to be making the walls. So I'm going to just get rid of the reference here because I don't think I'm really going to need it anymore. And then what I'm going to do, because this is going to be the high poly model, so I'm not too worried about the poly count on this particular one here. Obviously I can't have it too high because otherwise it'll crash Unity. But what I shall do, I'm just going to do a simple plane and I'm going to align that to the view. I'm going to test this to see if it works, but it should do. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring it to the center here and resize it so it comes up like so. Pop that in the center there and I shall bring it to there and a bit more controlled to bring it up to there. So this is going to be the sort of front wall. So I'm just going to go and put it into place. So into there. So now with this selected, I'm going to go ahead and divide it into sort of like, not rectangles, but sort of, well, yeah, kind of rectangular sort of shapes. And I'm going to go ahead and using the face, I'm just going to select everything here, right click and go subdivide. I'm going to subdivide it by probably 10 because it needs to be quite bumped out. So I know that's a lot of geometry, but for what I'm going to do, it should work. So it's just going to be a bit of an experiment, this one. So I'm just going to add a deep. First, where's the subdivide surface? Just add that on. I'm going to increase the levels to 2, and then I'm going to add a displacement modifier. So with this displacement modifier, I'm going to click New. So this texture here will be this thing here, and I'm going to call this wall. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press Open, and I'm going to go into my Textures folder, which you can't see, but I shall go into my brick textures, and I shall select the displacement. So now I've got the displacement in here, you can see, as you can see, it's now created quite a funky look here, which is not exactly what we want, but it's getting there. So now that's kind of done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the modifier, and I'm making sure it's select to normal, and here it's going to go, instead of local, I'm going to go UV. And what it does, that just smooths it out just a little bit. And because the strength is a bit too high, I'm just going to turn down the strength, and that gives us a nice sort of bumped look to it. So I rather like that. What I will do, I am going to apply if I do new here, and let's make a new material and call it house wall, and then TXT. That's just my name convention, you can call it whatever you want, but I prefer to call it that. So under my shading, you know the drill. Control Shift T, because I have the node wrangler enabled, and I'm just going to go ahead and select all of these. Now it won't work quite yet because it should. Oh, it did work. Usually what happens is sometimes it doesn't apply this texture, Now, because it is the same sort of texture as the bump, as you can see, it's brought it out rather nicely. And with the bump applied, you can see that it has now created something that looks like a realistic wall. So we've got a nice little bump and we've got actual geometry that pops out. So I'm liking that. That's looking really good. Now as you can see, the back of it looks a lot better than the front. And it's probably because of the way the UVs are. So what I'm going to do is just come into UV editing a little. And I'm going to select the faces. Or what I can do, just quite simply, which would be a lot easier, it's RZ180, just to flip it round. So we've got a nice texture kind of on the outside. So that's looking good. So I'm just going to bring that into place now. Bring it out just a little, just so it comes to about here. And of course I'm going to duplicate this, give it another 180, come into the side view, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that in just to about there. I'm not too worried about the window in there because it's going to be cut out, so I'm just going to bring that to about here. As long as the window frame itself is visible through the wall, that should be fine. So that should be okay there. So I'm just going to duplicate that once more. Bring that out to the side. And then I have a copy of it. And those two I'm going to join together. Just so I've got a nice sort of texture. So in front mode, I'm going to go into wireframe. And I'm going to do a cube. And I'm going to bring this cube here. Zoom in on it. Put it into the center of my window here. And I'm just going to scale it down. So it just needs to come to about there. It'd be easier just to do this. I'm just going to bring it here. Of course, crossed. So I want it just inside that outer window. So kind of about there and there. And that should be fine width-wise. It doesn't really matter. So now I have this. I can now go ahead and put that into place, and I know this is going to be my window boolean. So that's a nice size. Just making sure it's incorporated everything that needs to be incorporated, which it hasn't. It needs to be a bit wider. So I'll just make it a little bit wider. Probably it's about there. Let's have a quick look. And it does need to be deeper as well. I'll bring that to about there. Just going to bring those out just a little bit more. Just so it gives it a nice kind of clean cut. So I'll keep that. Now in here, I've got quite a few modifiers already. So I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to apply those. Then add the Boolean modifier to it. And select my little cube. select fast, and then apply that straight away. Now let's see what kind of damage it's done. Ah, that looks perfect. So now just double checking the textures, and that's looking really good. By adding that displacement modifier, it really has given it a nice bit of detailing on those bricks. So I rather like that, and I'm going to keep that as it is. So it's nice, kind of a nice sort of bumps effect. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the other walls now, exactly the same way as I did that, and I shall come back when that's done. And with those done, I'm finally on to the cutting out of the door. So I'm just going to make this, it's the same thing I used for the window. So I'm just going to make sure I've got it in a nice position where it's going to cut through everything that I needed to cut through. Just double check everything before I go ahead and cut this boolean, because it's the final boolean. Just going to bring that just into the center here. I think it does need to come over a little bit on this side. And that looks about right. So now I can go ahead and apply these modifiers and add my boolean and select my cube, do fast, apply that straight away. Now I can remove that. So that's looking really good now. So all I've got to do now is apply my house wall texture to that, and let's have a little look and see what it looks like. So as you can see, I've done the sides here, and now the front's done, and it's looking really good. These bricks kind of bulging out like so, and the same with here as well, the bricks just very slightly bulging out. Along the back as well, bricks just bulging out. That is going to need to come back just a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, it's going to need to come back a little bit on this side, so I'm going to bring that back in to about there. And this one, we're going to come back a little bit more. Bit more. I'm going to over exaggerate it a little bit. It's better. Just so we don't get that cutting into the actual wood. So I think that looks a lot better now. It just brings that texture out just a little bit more. And that's looking really good. Now I can go ahead and do the inner wall. So for this, I'm just simply going to do another cube. I'm going to come into the top viewport, bring that over, because this is going to be sort of wood, so it's not going to need to be that detailed like the front. So again, I'm just going to bring that to where it needs to be, bring it up a little bit, make sure it's on that line, bring that up, to about there. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to bring that right the way to the edge there. And this side needs to come all the way to the other side. To about there. Quick look. Yep, that's going to need to come up. So selecting the face, I'm just going to bring that right the way up. And bring that up to about here. Or thereabouts. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that face. It's not needed, so that's fine. Now this cube here, I'm going to make a new texture. So call that house wooden wall texture. And just very, very quickly go in and create another texture. So I should have my wooden wall here. So let's bring that in. And for some reason it never brings across the actual texture for the house. I don't know why it does that, but it does, and it's a little bit annoying, but I can easily just come to my folder and just drop it in. Now I can feed that into the base color there. So that becomes like this. All we've got to do is just a very, very quick UV unwrap. As you can see, they are going in the correct direction. So I'm just going to make them a little bit bigger each side. This is just so these sort of beams here, these planks of wood, get a little bit smaller, so I want it to be probably about there. So I think that's a good size. That's a good size. And using this again, so back into modelling, I'm just going to use my little door cutter. So I'm going to bring that into here. Make sure it is all lined up. So it's 3. Make sure it's lined up. That looks correct. Just going to come into here again, and I'm going to get rid of all the faces before I go ahead and do the boolean. So with this, I'm just going to duplicate that very quickly, bring that across, and just make sure it's in the right place before I go ahead and cut anything. That's looking right. So we're not going to actually need to do much of that, but before I do that, I'm going to duplicate that very quickly, rotate by 90 degrees, and then bring it in to where it needs to be. So it needs to be between these two, so about there, I think, thereabouts. Yeah, so that's correct. So now I can just come in here and I can bring this to about there, and bring this in again, and bring it to about there. So now I don't have to worry about that. What I do want to do is set that to surface. So I'm just going to quickly duplicate just that one beam, just to finish off that in there. So just make sure that it's kind of in the center. Put that, make sure that's in the center too. And that could come to about there. Just so we've got a beam in the center there as well. Okay, quick look, see what it looks like. It's looking good. Now these two here, select both, go join them up into my modifiers and very quick boolean. So I'm going to do fast into there, apply that straight away, and I don't need those anymore. So they can go. So now I've got my doors kind of cut out, I've got my windows in, which are looking good. I am liking the walls. So I'm just going to do the upper walls now. So again, they're going to be a simple cube. So I'm going to bring that to the center here. Come into wireframe mode. Zoom right the way in and bring that just into the center here. And then that needs to come up. Just so it's in line. That there. So it's sitting on that beam. Bring it over to the center. And make sure everything's lined up. Which it looks like it might be. So yeah, that looks fine. So I'm just going to bring that out, both edges there. In vertex mode, I'm just going to bring that up to about there. Select these, merge them at the center. Select those, merge at the center. And that's pretty much done. Quick look. Just to make sure it's all in, which it is. And I'm going to use the same wooden texture for here as well. So the usual, just unwrap. And I'm going to sort this out and then come back. And now, as you can see, I have completed these. So I made them look quite cool, and I've also done these two as well, so back and front. So in the next video, I'm going to be making the actual door for here, and probably the window panes as well. So the door will go in here as well. And I may make the roof as well, but I'll see how long that video goes on for. That's it for now.